Good morning. Welcome back. We are so thrilled to have everyone back. Hope you had a good holiday, Christmas, New Year, Hanukkah, or nothing. Ours was very quiet and it was very wonderful. So welcome back. So we're going to talk about Ezra today. We're in the history section of the Old Testament, and so sometimes it can relevance is something we have a little trouble with. Why does it matter? I'm going to try and show you today that the Bible actually repeats itself over and over. It's one long story about salvation through the seed of the woman and the results of that. But it is one big story, but it does repeat itself. So today we're going to talk about the rest of the story with the rebuilding of the temple, with Ezra and the rebuilding of the temple. So just to set everybody straight, in Daniel, they were going into they were in exile. So there are two great periods in the Old Testament: the Exodus and the exile. Those were huge parts of the Jewish nation's journey, right? The Exodus, Moses leaving Egypt, and then they went back into slavery. They went back into captivity in the exile. And so then after they are released from the exile, it's the new Exodus. And then when Jesus comes, it's even a newer Exodus. That's a whole nother story. But the exile is when they were taken from their land, physically taken from their land by the Babylonians, and they walked to Babylon, which is in Iraq. And so you can imagine it's all the way across the Fertile Crescent. They walked there after being completely humiliated. So they have been humiliated beyond belief. And God told them that prior to the exile, he said, I'm going to bring you back. This is one of the first verses I want to talk about, Jeremiah 29, because it's really important. He said, I'm going to bring you back, and we're all going to start over. So Ezra is Ezra, Nehemiah, Esther. That's after the exile. That's the rebuilding of the temple. So for us, we're going to talk about a little bit. I want to go to Jeremiah 29. This is probably one of the most misquoted verses in all of Scripture, because you have to remember where this is occurring. So Jeremiah is in captivity. Now, this is after, think about it, the Mexicans came up to Dallas and walked us to Mexico City with nothing. Absolutely nothing. Destroyed everything. I mean everything, right? In a humiliatingly horrible way. If you read Jeremiah specifically, and if you read Lamentations, you get a sense of the absolute humiliation and destruction they had to go through. It was horrible. The way, in case you don't know, the way they took Jerusalem was the king, the Babylonian king, surrounded it and waited for 2 years. He had cut off the water and the food, and he waited for 2 years until they just all starved to death. And then he just walked into the city. So you can imagine the horror. And if you read Lamentations, it's difficult to preach because it's so graphic. So this verse is during the time of the exile, right at the beginning of the exile. For thus says the Lord, when 70 years are completed for Babylon, I will visit you and I will fulfill my promise and bring you back to this place. Now, he's telling this to the people that are on their way out. And here's the verse that really, I think we really have to look at. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans for welfare and not for evil, to give you a future and a hope. Okay, that is at the beginning of the 70-year exile, where they are humiliated and destroyed beyond belief. So what hope do they have? The problem I have with this verse, when I hear a lot of Christians talk about it, is it's this rosy picture of God's got everything's going to go well for me. Everything's going to go swimmingly for me. It's like Romans 8:28. All things work together for good for me, to those who love God and are called. No, it's not. Cancer is working good in you. Right? So you have to understand this. God said, I've always had a plan for you. He told Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, I have given you this land. He has repeated it through the prophets. I'm giving you this land. I'm giving you this land. I'm giving you this land. By the way, you're about to leave this land. But it's still your land, and you will possess it one day. And then verse 12, you will call upon me and come and pray to me, and I will hear you. You will seek me and find me when you seek me with all your heart. This is alluding to the new covenant, which is for another time. Jeremiah 31, I will be found by you, declares the Lord, and I will restore your fortunes and gather you from all the nations and the places where I have driven you. Not just Babylon, all the nations, right? Babylon was one nation. So if God was just going to redeem them from one nation, so this has kind of a far-reaching consequence from all the nations. Not just, yes, I'm talking about the 70 years, but I'm talking about some other things too. And all the places where I've driven you, declares the Lord, and I will bring you back to the place from which I sent you into exile, right? These people went into exile partly because of their sin. Certainly those who were unrepentant were a problem, but the righteous, don't forget, went along with them. There were righteous Jews, and they marched right alongside the unrighteous. That's a thing about your sin has consequences, mostly for others, really. So you've got to know this before you can make sense of what's going on. So Ezra, this is Ezra chapter 6, verses 3 through 5. This is where God's faithfulness is shown again. And one of the things I really want us to understand, I know I talk about this a lot, is that God's faithfulness is something we have to understand, because we don't understand a lot of what goes on in our life. We just don't get, why does this have to happen, and why does that have to happen, and why does... He's not telling us. He's just telling us he's faithful. So he says, Ezra 6, first year of Cyrus, the king issued a decree concerning the house of God at Jerusalem, that the house be rebuilt, the place where sacrifices were offered. Let its foundations be retained. And then he talks about how that's actually going to take place. Notice what God had said. I will fulfill my promise and bring you back to this place. I will fulfill my promise. Okay, the promise is now being fulfilled. And notice who it's being fulfilled through. A Persian king. You know, if I would imagine if you were to ask the Israelites, who's going to bring you back, a Persian king would probably not make the top 10 list. All right, so God... his ways are not our ways. He thinks differently than we think. We just have to trust him. So he's telling them, all right, I'm going to bring you back. I am going to bring you back. And now we see his faithfulness, right? Go back and rebuild the temple. And that's what Ezra and the people do. And they kind of do an okay job. Nehemiah comes along and really pushes them. But anyway, so God's faithfulness to his people, we can see that. But it comes with opposition, okay? It comes with opposition. God's people will always have opposition. This is Ezra 4. And once the Jews got back, they had lots of problems. Even though God said, I'm going to bring you back, and you're going to rebuild the temple and all these things, they had problems. The people of the land discouraged the people of Judah, and made them afraid to build. It made them afraid to do what God called them to do. God told them to rebuild the temple. Go and rebuild the temple. Well, the people, the culture made them afraid, bribed counselors against them to frustrate their purpose all the days of Cyrus, king of Persia. As I recall, let me just make sure, Cyrus, the king, said, go build. Well, these people are frustrating that, even until the reign of Darius, king of Persia. And then they sent a letter. These guys sent a letter saying, in part, now be it known to the king, they're writing to Cyrus, to the king, if this is rebuilt and the wall's finished, they, the Jews, will not pay tribute, custom, or toll, and the royal revenue will be impaired. You will find in the book of the records and learn that this city is a rebellious city, hurtful to kings and provinces, that sedition was stirred up in it from old. This is why the city was laid to waste. Part of that's true, but they certainly don't mean it that way. So they are actively opposing God. That's going to happen. Active opposition to what God has told you to do. What has God told you to do? God has told us to do certain things. He says, go do. And we say, but the people don't want us to do that. And he says, go and do. It's like Jonah, right? Jonah. The word of the Lord came to Jonah and said, go to Nineveh. Jonah left and did all kinds of silly stuff and ended up smelling like fish vomit. And then what did the Lord say? Go to Nineveh. He didn't change a bit. I told you to go to Nineveh, and I want you to go to Nineveh. End of story. All right? God has told us to do things, but opposition's going to come, but God's will be done. And the elders of the Jews built and prospered through the prophesying of Haggai the prophet and Zechariah the son of Iddo. They finished their building by the decree of God of Israel and by the decree of Cyrus and Darius and Artaxerxes, king of Persia. They persevered and they built. And this house was finished on the 3rd day of the month of Adar in the 6th year of the reign of Darius the king, and the people of Israel, the priests, the Levites, and the rest of the returned exiles celebrated the dedication of this house of God with joy. On the 14th day of the month, the returned exiles kept the Passover. Amen, right? Isn't that beautiful? God sent them into exile, but he told them, he had already, before there was exile, Abram, I'm going to make you a great land, and you're going to be a blessing to everyone. On down the line. Then he sends them into exile. They leave the land, but he tells them before they go, don't worry, you're coming back, because I know the plans I have for you. I've got great plans for you. They don't look really good right now, though, I have to be honest. Because I'm starting to head north, and then I'm going to turn east, walking for 1,500 miles. That's really going to be a drag. Yeah, but I know the plans I have for you. So who are you going to trust? And lo and behold, the plans come true. These people come back, and the work gets done. And one of the interesting things I've always thought about is, so if you were an exile and you were in your 30s or 40s, you weren't coming back. I mean, you were just going to die wherever you went, because 70 years you were going to die. It's only the very young that were going to come back. So us old folks would be like, great, I get to go live in Babylon until I die. Yes, you do. And Jeremiah talks about that, and he says, and I want you to build houses and plant gardens and pray with the community and all this kind of stuff, right? We are exiles. So this is a picture of God's people in exile. Okay, God's people in exile, and he's always promised to restore our relationship to him, always. Always. So what's the relevance for us, right? It's a wonderful history story. It should be known by all Christians because it's important. But what's the relevance today? All right. God promised he will save us through the seed of the woman. That's Genesis 3. So God promised he would save his people through the seed of the woman. And also through the sacrifice of the innocent, Genesis 3:21. The sacrifice of the innocent will cover the shame of the guilty. Then we see in John, the seed of the woman is Christ, is Jesus the Christ. That's who the seed of the woman is. God promised to save the world. He promised to destroy evil, to set things right in the seed of the woman. The Old Testament is all about who is the seed of the woman. Who is the seed of the woman? And we find that out in the Gospels. Who's the seed of the woman? It's Jesus the Christ. And then in John 6, we have hold on. We have it's not this idea, bad choice of words. We had the reality that once saved, always saved. Let me see if I can. Jesus said to them, John 6:35, I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me shall not hunger, and whoever believes in me shall never thirst. All that the Father gives me will come to me, and whoever comes to me I will never cast out. Okay, God had told his people, you're my people. There are going to be difficulties, but you are my people. You will always be my people. Right? Always be my people. Jesus says, once you're mine, you're mine. There's nothing that can change that. Now, we have to believe that. And one of the ways that we can really internalize that is to go back and look at Ezra and go, okay, let's see. God said to Abram, I'm going to make you a great nation. I'm going to give you this land. I gave you this land. Abram, Isaac, Jacob, we got the land. We went to Egypt. Oh, but we came to the land. Moses, we got the land. We got the land. Oh, we're going to have to leave the land, but you're going to come back to the land. And lo and behold, they come back to the land. His faithfulness. It's not blind faith. Genesis 21 is the Abraham sacrifices Isaac. And some have called it blind faith. Well, it's not blind faith. Abraham talked to God. He knew who God was. He knew exactly who he was talking to. He just didn't take a shot in the dark. He knew that God was able to raise the living from the dead. That's what was counted to him as righteousness. He believed God, that he was going to give him a son when he was 100 and his wife was 90 and her womb was as good as dead. He knew that God could raise the living from the dead. So when he said, go sacrifice your son, not a problem, because you're going to do something. How did he know that? Because he talked to God. So once saved, always saved. Know that. You cannot. It's not your salvation to win. It's not yours to lose. It's Jesus's, right? All that the Father gives me will come to me, and whoever come to me, I will never cast out. So either you're always saved or he's a liar. Well, so far he hasn't proven ever to be a liar, so you are always saved. Then opposition's going to come, right? You are his person. You are his people. He will bring you back into relationship with him. But right now, what are we? Are we citizens of this world or are we citizens of another world? We're foreigners and exiles, aren't we? Peter says that. We have to remember that. This is not our home. Just like the Jews who were in Babylon, this is not our home. God has promised to bring us home. This ain't it. And for us old people, we may never see when Jesus comes back. I want to phrase that differently. We may not be here when he comes back because we may already be in heaven. Just like the Israelites who were older when they went into exile, they weren't coming back to the land. And they had to be okay with that. They had to leave everything they had and be okay with that. But Jesus says you will have trouble. John 16, you will have trouble. But what? Take heart. You will have trouble in the world, but what? Take heart, because I've overcome the world. Okay, so for a while, we are going to have trouble. I have said these things to you that in me, you may have peace, not in anything else. In me, you may have peace. In the world, you will have trouble, tribulation, trial, but take heart. I've overcome the world. Right? Ezra's people I mean, they were saying all kinds of slanderous nonsense against them. They're horrible people. They're not going to pay taxes. They're a rebellious group, which they were. But no, the temple was going to be rebuilt, and they rebuilt it. The world says all kinds of things about us. The more we follow him, notice what was happening with Ezra. They were objectively building the temple. They weren't thinking about it. They weren't having meetings about it or conferences about it. They were actually doing it. They were out there with shovels and picks and whatever else they had, and they were rebuilding the temple in front of God and everybody. And the everybody didn't like it. So they complained. And they tried to shut it down. When we go out and try and do that, we're going to face opposition. When we stand up and say, culture, I'm not going to follow you. I'm going to do what God has told me to do. We're going to get pushback. But take heart. Jesus has already fixed that problem. Yeah, but it doesn't look like it right now. It didn't look like it to the Israelites either. Not as they're marching off to Babylon. Can you imagine what was going on in their minds? Ugh. I mean, I like to hike and everything, but God. And then, John 14, it may not get much better than this, right? It may not get much better than this. Let not your hearts be troubled. Believe me, believe God, believe also in me. In my Father's house are many rooms. If it were not so, would I have told you that I go to prepare a place for you? And if I go and prepare a place for you, which he did, I will come again, and will take you to myself, that where I am, you may be also. God's got a place for us. We don't see it now, but Jesus just said, hey, look, I'm coming to prepare a place for you. I know you're exiles. As he's standing there in the upper room giving these last instructions, he knows what his disciples are about to face. All the way down the line. Not just the 11 that are there, but all the way down the line. And he's telling this. He left these words for us. I'm coming back to get you. Don't worry about it. I know it's going to be tough. Believe me. But I'm going to come back and get you. So the last thing, and I called this the grace of faithfulness of God. This is on our tombstone, actually. This is where we're headed. And this is like the call in Jeremiah, if you think about it. Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and the sea was no more. And I saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. And I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, behold, the dwelling place of God is with man. He will dwell with them, and they will be his people, and God will be with them as their God. Hold on 1 second. Verse 12, then you will call upon me and come and pray to me, and I will hear you. You will seek me and find me, and you will seek me with all your heart. I will be found by you, declares the Lord. Isn't that something? It's not word for word, but it's pretty close. He will wipe away every tear from their eyes, and death shall be no more. Neither shall there be mourning, nor crying, nor pain, nor cancer, nor divorce, nor war, nor anything anymore, for the former things have passed away. That's the faithfulness we need to be looking at. And we can go back to Ezra. We can actually go back all through the Old Testament. All through the Old Testament and see how God has been faithful from the word go. Everything that he has said was going to happen did, which means everything that he said will happen will. That's one of the beauties of understanding the Old Testament. It's really a repetition. Right? It's really a repetition. This is what happens to God's people over thousands of years, and we can see that. And now we are God's people as well, and it's going to happen to us. We are exiles, we are foreigners, we are facing opposition, but God has made promises to us. And those promises are going to be fulfilled. And you don't have to take it on blind faith. You can actually go to His Word, and you can go back and look through history. Isn't that cool? I mean, it's a really neat thing. It's a really neat thing. And I teach our 11 and 12-year-olds this all the time. I mean, you've got to be willing to go back into the Old Testament and look and not just see it's a great history lesson. Oh, and this happened in this year and this. That's fine. I don't mind that. But why does it matter to you, Ken? Well, it matters because I'm His child and I'm living in the middle of a crooked and perverse generation, and it's not very fun sometimes. And I wonder what's all going to happen. Well, here it is. So, excuse me. Questions? How have you, or how do you read Jeremiah 29, 10 through 14? I'm curious for y'all to discuss that because, like I said, this is a very, very popular coffee cup verse, but I think it is horribly misapplied. It's God telling His people in the midst of horrific trouble that I've got you. Do you believe adversity can be God's good for you? If so, how? How does God's Word in the Old Testament help us deal with life today? Have you seen God's faithfulness reveal itself in the midst of your adversity? If so, how? Enjoy.